Saab has unveiled the Ground Combat Indoor Trainer, a cutting-edge virtual training system for its suite of ground combat weapons, including the Carl-Gustaf M4, AT4, and NLAW. Here's what makes this development noteworthy. This is realistic training. The GCIT is employing advanced technologies to create highly realistic training scenarios, enhancing soldiers' preparedness for actual combat situations. It's cost-effective. Allows for comprehensive training without the expenses associated with live fire exercises. And anyone who has gone to the range knows how expensive 5 minutes of the range is, right? Versatile configurations supporting both individual and collective training, accommodating various weapon types, small arms, large, meeting some pretty diverse training needs. And really, they're just showing this off. This is just showcasing for the first time that Saab did at the Interservice Industry Training Simulation and Education Conference, or ITSEC, I think it's called. I don't know, in Orlando. But that's cool. I mean, that's some cool technology, and I think it's needed.
Oh, it's super cool, because this is like, I want one of these in my living room, right? Like, talk about a nice little, who needs the Wii when you can play this, right? But
it's true.
It's supposed to be virtual weapons training for all of their weapon systems. So, you know, like, being cost effective, great, makes sense. Fantastic way to prepare soldiers. If we learned anything from that movie, The Last Starfighter, if you haven't seen it, go watch it now.
I don't think you could learn anything from The Last Starfighter, but carry on.
You just haven't seen it. It's fantastic. That is my argument, where I'm going to say Andrew is 100% wrong in this show, as he does not think it's a good movie, because it is. But the biggest thing for me in all of this is making sure that this is accurate to real life situations, not just the scenarios, but also the way that the weapons feel, the way the soldiers have to react to them, the environment. All of this needs to be a very realistic training in order to make it appropriate in real life situations.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but I think there's more to it than just the realism aspect. The real challenge for me is adaptive training and scalability. Soldiers have all got different skill levels, and the system needs to dynamically adjust to train both beginners and seasoned operators effectively, because without that scalability, it's risks being a one-size-fits-none solution that doesn't meet the demands of modern, diverse military units. So it's got to be adaptive. It's got to be scalable.
I mean, I'd argue that if it's realistic training, it's going to actually be able to fit into exactly what you just said, of being able to have the situations of the soldiers, their different skills, everything that's going on with them, be something that actually makes sense in the training scenario. So I think they need to take the training software, test it against real life situations, real life physics, and real life skill sets of the people who are using it, and trying to make everything as, again, real as possible.
So you've kind of merged with me a little bit there, but if realism is your holy grail, you're kind of ignoring the fact that the real combat situations, it's not a static environment. Soldiers need training that's going to adapt to their skill levels and challenges them in dynamic ways as those skills continue to evolve. So without that scalability, even the most realistic system becomes basically a glorified simulator for beginners.
I mean, that is a fantastic point, because you can't have a training system that doesn't train you for the actual situations, which is why I was arguing for real. But real means to incorporate the fact that, as you say, the combat isn't static. You've got to be ready. You can't just know like the cheat codes to get through the game level, because you know it's going to be set. It's going to change. It's going to have to change. And how do we figure that out? How do we make something like this kind of training, as realistic, by my words, as possible? And I think it's going to have to go back to looking at, what are we trying to do with this? So we start with what are the requirements we're trying to get, is figuring out what we're training for.
Yep. So you just say requirements gathering, then your design and change comes in. So you've got to develop a modular simulation framework that's going to be able to adjust to difficulty and complexity dynamically. You're going to need your product validations, your simulation layer on top of that. So you've got to have test scenarios with real soldiers to gather feedback on the realism, to your point, and the scalability, to my point, making sure that everyone's aligned with the operational needs of that combat force.
Greg, do you remember how sometimes when we have these discussions, Andrew is like, so Brian, you're basically saying everything? I think that's what Andrew just did. He just went from requirements to design to product validation.
Yeah, but Andrew's allowed a couple of those. If that's your default response.
I'm giving a total solution here.
Right, everything.
Yeah, that's true. It kind of reminds me of the flight simulators that they used in, well, I mean, we all know movies can be a little exaggerating, but in Sully, and
Last
he's like, yeah, like
The Last Starfighter.
Starfighter.
It was a
No,
great
in
one.
Sully, because they're like, all of our pilots who were in these simulators could do what needed to be done. Why couldn't you do it? And they weren't thinking of they weren't putting the human response time in there. They were saying, yeah, this is what we do. We get hit by birds and we just automatically turn. That's not how it works. So anyways, it's interesting. There's a lot of things going there.
See you next week.